Good day to you all, or good evening. I welcome you to this discussion panel on the subject of trends and applications on cyber-physical learning at the Empowering Learners for the Age of AI 2023 conference. My name is Luis Morán, Living Lab Coordinator at the Institute for the Future of Education in Tecnológico de Monterrey, and I will be the moderator for this session. Today, I'm pleased to share the room with three distinguished speakers. Kenneth, Director of the Campus X program at the Office of Digital Learning at the Singapore University of Technology and Design. Sean McMinn, Director of the Center for Education Innovation at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. And Genaro Zavala, Director of the Research Lab Initiative at the Institute for the Future of Education in Tecnológico de Monterrey. Thank you all three for being here. So without further ado, let's begin with the panel by posing an introductory question that to set the context on cyber-physical learning. We will begin with the answer from Kenneth, then we'll move to Sean, and then to Genaro. So the first question is, could you share with the audience what is the essence of cyber-physical learning and how is your institution embracing this new paradigm?
Yeah, thank you, Morán, for opening the session. Over at SUTD, SUTD by itself is actually a university with engineering faculty and architecture. And we are very into engineering design, architectural design, and multidisciplinary kind of learning. So the way we look at cyber-physical learning is really, how can we bring remote cyber students together with physically present face-to-face students to learn at the same time. So they are taking the same lessons at the same time, almost in the same course, in the class in a way. So it's a lot of synchronous kind of learning. So we are trying to give the experience that, no matter where you are coming from or where you are at, you can actually participate in a course, in a class at the same time. And of course, the levels of cyber-physical learning can range also because we also realize, we have a lot of hands-on activities. So we have a lot of scaffolded design courses where students have to build prototypes, from junior years to senior years. So we're also trying to see how we can enable this hands-on component as well. So our cyber-physical learning is meant for courses, that are lecture style in nature where it's just didactic coaching, teaching, but it's also ranging up to hands-on, practical sessions as well. So this is how SUTD sees cyber-physical learning over at SUTD. Okay.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Kenneth, for such information. Let's move on to Sean. What can you tell us about this new paradigm and how has it been addressed in the Hong Kong University of Technology and Science and Technology? I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's a mouthful, especially early in the morning for me. So I come from a university that's predominantly engineering and science, although we have a large business school as well, and a small humanities and social sciences school. So it's a fairly young university, and we've been exploring online blended learning, flipped classrooms for a number of years, MOOCs as well. But when we start to talk about cyber physical learning, a lot of it is very similar to what Kenneth described. How do we handle remote students? Right now, university, we're celebrating 1 year of having 2 campuses. We now have a second campus that opened up in Guangzhou. And we're exploring ways in which we can have students in both campuses take courses at the same time. And there are various ways of doing this. As Kenneth mentioned, doing it synchronously, you could do it through Zoom, but we're also exploring the use of virtual reality and the metaverse. And we're exploring setting up physical spaces to support this. So when we talk about being able to bring in students remotely, we're also thinking here, what does that mean physically here on campus? How do we redesign our classrooms? And we're right now exploring ways of redesigning our classrooms to enable students to be both in both campuses at the same time. But we're also looking at cyber-physical learning. We broadened the scope a little bit too. I mean, particularly with the introduction of AI, we're looking at it in the fact that now human involvement, the cyber part involvement in the learning is also within an agent now. And how does that impact the learning environment if we introduce artificial intelligence in knowledge construction? So if you have the humans, how we perceive the world, how we learn, how we problem solve, and all the biases that are involved there, and then the AI agents, how they perceive, how they problem solve, and all the biases that are inherent there. And then when they work together, what implications and benefits occur. So we're looking at cyber-physical on a very broad aspect, both for the cyber remote interaction through the metaverse, across campuses, remote students, but also now with the new agent involved as well. And so there's lots to talk about. I'm sure there'll be more to talk about on that subject as we move on. So I'll pass it on.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for your answer. Yeah, indeed. I mean, a lot of different technologies and platforms and scenarios, learning scenarios, are involved in this new era. So let us hear from Genaro. What can you tell us about how you're looking at cyber-physical learning in Tec de Monterrey?
Thank you, Luis. Apologize for my voice. I have been a little bit sick of my health, so I hope you are listening to me very well. I would like to emphasize something else. I mean, I agree with Ken, I agree with Sean, but we have to take into account that cyber-physical learning is not only a blend of traditional in-person education and distance online education. It's more than that. So it emphasizes the intimacy or the immediacy of the physical classroom into the digital setting. So take both worlds and take the advantages of both worlds together. So that's the idea. And to do that, we have to have advanced technological tools to do it, but also pedagogical tools to do it. In Tecnológico Monterrey, we have been working on different technological tools, virtual reality, augmented reality. That's something we should take into account to increase the interaction between the students in this setting. Robots, I have seen robots in different places, in Singapore, in Monterrey. So tele-presence robot should be another technology that we have to take into account. Of course, high quality video conference is good, but it has to be mixed with 3D cameras and virtual reality in order to have more interaction and to have a more realistic setting. And of course, interactive whiteboards, haptic feedback devices, and everything. So that's the technological part. But also, we have to think about the educational model. So what kind of educational model we should use in order to have this interaction and to have a feeling that they are not far away from each other. So we have, of course, to take into account all we have been doing in active learning, a lot of flipped classroom, flipped classroom in the literature and the universities around the world after the pandemic is one of the key actors nowadays in distance education, because we have to have something for people and something that we cannot do in the hour and a half that we have the students there. So we have to take probably the flipped classroom and then to have activities, peer interaction, active learning inside the classroom. So that's what we are doing in Tecnológico Monterrey.
Thank you very much, Genaro. Yes, indeed. I mean, it's a fusion of different approaches and educational models, as well as technologies and pedagogies. And this makes me move to my next question, which is, what changes are happening in the existing educational models, and how does cyber-physical learning fit in these new educational models? So for this question, we'll move on a different order. We'll begin with Sean, and then we'll move to Genaro, and finally with Kenneth. So Sean, if you'd like to share. You're on mute, Sean.
Sorry. Yeah. Even though we teach this and we train faculty development, we always forget ourselves. Yeah. So it's a good question to discuss. And maybe I'll kind of follow up on what you mentioned about the difference between technological and educational models, in the sense that with the technological models, we here at UST, we're struggling with space and redesigning of our classrooms, and it has an impact on the educational model. We know we need to move forward. We know we need to change some of the ways we teach in the classroom, have more active learning. And in some ways, cyber-physical allows for active learning to occur. You can bring in outside guests. You can have students experience things virtually if you have the right technology. But without the space and without the physical aspect, bringing in that new educational model is hindered a little bit, although we are doing this. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to shift more towards active learning, in the sense that students are engaging with knowledge, engaging in interactive activities, instead of sitting passively in a lecture or small classrooms, following this teacher-centered approach. I mean, this isn't anything new, to be honest. A lot of universities have been talking about this for some time. But with cyber-physical learning and how we're bringing in different technologies that enable these educational models, we are now able to touch on looking at knowledge, for example, from different perspectives. Let's go back to AI, for example. If we bring in agents within the classroom, and this is something that we're starting to explore. We don't have any of this yet, obviously, but we are in discussion. How do we equip a classroom with AI bots or collaboration stations that are equipped with AI, so that you can bring knowledge in a dialogic partner, in a sense, into the classroom to interact with the students, to problem solve on a topic, or make use of a VR that is tied to an AI chatbot. And we are exploring this with the Oculus, where we've developed a chatbot, and for professional development, for example, we have a chatbot, an avatar that's running on ChatGPT, interacting with the TAs over a problem that they might encounter in the classroom, right? So this chatbot is bringing in a whole new agent. So it's becoming more engaging. It's more active learning in that sense, and more real-world kind of a scenario. But as I mentioned earlier, our limitations and our drawbacks is the physical space. It's not just educational technology that's becoming more and more accessible. VR technology is becoming cheaper to purchase, and it's becoming a lot more effective. But the physical space, we're not sure what to do right now. Revamping our classrooms, building new classrooms, especially when land is a premium. But this is something I suspect Monterey may not experience. Singapore you might be experiencing this similar thing as Hong Kong. I'll pass it on. I think you said next is Kenneth.
Next would be Genaro. Thanks, Sean.
No.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Luis. Yeah, the technological advances has been the last years. It has been a lot, but also the pandemics accelerated everything in terms of the use of technology, the use of digital education. So nowadays, after the pandemics, there have been some universities who are creating different programs, online programs, completely online programs for lifelong learning. And what they have been choosing is flipped classrooms, for instance, to teach and these kind of programs. So there has been a lot of emphasis, and not only in using techniques, strategies, but also on the research of those strategies in order to get feedback and improve those strategies when you use distance education. So those are the things that we have to take into account in what we are doing right now. And how cyber physical learning fits in everything, because cyber physical learning has to bridge the gap between what students could do in physical learning in the classrooms, but also take advantage of students in some other places. And I agree with Chan that we are going to talk about the artificial intelligence, and there are some good things there. But just now is how to bring together the people who are in a classroom with people who are in different classrooms around the world. So that's something the cyber physical learning fits very well, probably using flipped classroom or probably using some other pedagogical strategy. But also we have to take into account that when we talk about lifelong learning, of course, content is important, but also it's very important to teach some skills that are related to the professional life of students, because normally in lifelong learning, you have workers that are going to the program. So we have to think about the practical skills that we are used to do that in a face-to-face environment, but we have to take that into account in this environment in which you have students in the classroom and somewhere else. So those I think cyber physical fits very well in what is happening with pedagogical strategies in the world.
Thanks, Genaro. Kenneth?
Yeah, I mean, from SUTD's perspective, the change that we see in terms of education, I guess, was triggered by COVID, and we realized, okay, yes, we should go to Zoom. But we realized in a hybrid setting, there were some challenges in terms of, like what Genaro was saying, learning, socialization, connection. But we also had ideas, of, self-directed, personalized, skills-based learning. So we had this idea that, we should hopefully enable every student to customize education to fit their strengths, their motivations. And, we also thought they should be able to have the freedom, the liberty to learn, literally anywhere, anytime. And also another concept is learn and work, where we think that some of our students might want to do some startup activities, entrepreneurship, or do some industrial exposure, but gain an education at the same time. So in a way, with this disruption through COVID, and with this, desires, learning trends that we see towards skills-based learning, towards this learn and work. That's why we started what we call this cyber physical learning program, innovation program. We call it Campus X. So under Campus X, we actually developed a number of tools. I think the first tool that we developed was this tele-presence learning system, which acts as the eyes, the ears, and the fingers, for now the fingers, of the remote cyber student. So it is placed in a class, and we assume that a certain number of students are in the cyberspace and the other students are face-to-face, but they interact and learn together. And for the cyber students, this tele-presence system actually is a proxy for them. So it's a proxy for their listening, for their visual, and of course, we have some hands-on activities. That's where we have some devices, to act as the fingers to point at certain things as well. But like what Sean and Genaro were saying, because it has to fit into a space and environment, So the classroom is also necessary to be looked into to see how it can be adapted to fit all this equipment. And of course, very importantly, the pedagogy as well, because we realize, this is not just a substitution whereby instead of a conventional whiteboard, you use a digital whiteboard, it's a substitution, but it is more transformative. So very likely we need to come up with customized or new practices, new instructional design in order to maximize some of these technologies, like Sean was saying, AR, VR. So I think these tools, we are also trying out SUTD, and we realize that they can actually help to enhance learning in very good areas. And that's where we might need to change, some of the course content in order to bring up to all these benefits as well. So these are some of the thoughts I have. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. Yes, indeed. We could think about the disruption caused by the COVID pandemic as a starting point for studying cyber-physical learning. And Sean brought a very interesting subject, that is artificial intelligence. Right now, we could believe that we're living through the disruption caused by artificial intelligence. So our next question would be, so considering the latest developments in AI, how can it improve the study or the applications of cyber-physical learning environments? This time we'll begin with Sean, and then we'll move to Genaro, and finally to Kenneth.
Coming back to what Kenneth said about flexibility and different pathways for students in learning, right? Anytime, anywhere. I think AI potentially has the promise of assisting students with that, and also faculty members in managing and monitoring and getting the learning analytics to understand where are students in the learning journey, who's struggling with what, and then being able to change the learning process or the materials and the content according to what the learning analytics is telling the faculty members. Of course, there might be some dangers in this when you're designing personal learning paths, particularly if it's the student leading this. Is the AI accurate enough in identifying the direction that the student should be going? Is the student asking the right questions? Do they know how much they know and how much they don't know in order to choose their own learning path? So there are some things to be aware of. But I think AI is holding promise for this to help with flexible learning anytime, anywhere, and guided learning and personalized learning. And of course, it has a lot of promise for some time in learning analytics, as I mentioned, in that sense. So I think with those latest developments, it can help with studying and cyber-physical learning. And then I know other people have been also just an offshoot from that, looking at facial recognition and AI understanding participation, being able to see how students are engaged, those students who are remote, and how engaged they are in a lesson. So it's useful in that sense. But of course, again, the limitations of that, what are the cultural implications? Does AI accurately measure engagement the same way across cultures? But I think we're moving in a good direction, and I think there's a lot of promise in this area.
Thanks, Sean. I believe we'll move now to Kenneth's answer, because the order in the previous question was the other one.
Sure. No.
Go ahead, Kenneth.
Yeah. I think AI definitely has a role to play. And like what was mentioned by Sean, definitely learning analytics can use a lot of predictive AI, to hopefully identify students that need more attention so that we can improve their learning outcomes. So this is a very important area. And also, to also see how we can personalize learning for them, because it's back to the concept of, customized, personalized learning. So based on the pace of learning of a student, can we come up with reasonable algorithms to recommend that, maybe you can take another course at the same time or take some further more advanced quizzes in a way. So on one level, we can use this, I would call it the machine learning driven or the AI suite of tools, to do enable personalized learning. But then we also have another kind of AI tools. They call it generative AI tools. I think, ChatGPT, Midjourney. So they all fall into this other category. So these tools are also interesting that can be explored for cyber physical learning. But like what Sean mentioned, of course, there are some dangers because, we have to be careful of, AI-related plagiarisms, and of course, entering sensitive information, for example, research information, you don't want to enter it into ChatGPT, which will then be, entered into their learning model. But there are some advantages as well. And at SUTD recently, we actually did a survey of how students view these generative AI tools. And, about 75% of them says that actually they are aware of, the dangers, the downsides of these tools. But 80% of them say that they expect, that they would like to see how these tools can be used for their learning and teaching. So that is a good outcome. I mean, that at least students are aware of the bad and the good. So we definitely have to see how to harness these tools into cyber physical learning. So I mean, over at SUTD, we have started one or two projects related to use of these AI tools, all together. Basically, we actually have one project that looks into prompt engineering, just to see how our students, enter their prompts, as part of their assignments, to get a sense of how students interact with, particularly in this case, ChatGPT. But there's another project whereby we're trying to use these large language models to come up with a AI personalized tutor, where they will take our specific lecture contents and feed it into a language model. And when a student asks questions, they will actually get more specific answers, related to our content, which I think is a very powerful mechanism because, I think all of us have done some form of teaching. And if you run into a module that is very complex, your consultations will get more and more. So imagine you have some tools that can help you to answer some of the level 1 questions, that can help to save instructors a lot of time. And also identify some of the key topics as well. What are some of the key questions people are asking so that you can maybe come up with, specialized notes. Okay, these are the hot questions and this is, so in a way, there are some benefits that we can use these tools, as productivity. But I think they should definitely support the human instructors. Definitely that the human instructor should have a overview of what is happening, but can leverage on these tools to pick out, what students need in order to respond better. Yeah. So these are what are my thoughts. Yeah.
Thanks, Kenneth. So finally, let's move to Genaro. What can you tell us about?
Oh, Sean and Ken said everything that I was thinking to say. Look, I am more positive than negative when in terms of the artificial intelligence in education. I think that this is something we cannot stop, and we have to just embrace it and bring it to universities. And I think that, I have worked with adaptive curriculum, for instance, or adaptive learning, I would say. It was not very good. But I think the current technology that we are seeing, it will increase a lot the adaptive learning that we can see in the future. So we can use that in cyber physical learning. Feedback, assessment. That's something very important in artificial intelligence because the system can learn how to give feedback to students. So it is good that the instructor is there, but we can have systems in which the students can interact with a chatbot to, make questions. Having probably an internal GPT, like we did in Tecnológico Monterrey, we have our Tech GPT. So all the information in Tecnológico de Monterrey, in this kind of technology, without sharing information outside Tecnológico Monterrey. So that's something we can do also. Assessment, the one thing instructors, professors, I'm going to be politically incorrect. So one thing professor and instructor complain about is assessment. We love teaching. I love preparing my classes to teach and interact with students. But in terms of assessment, this is something really, really painful. Well, artificial intelligence would help us with that. There are some problems, of course, ethical problems that we have to take into account, and I think we have a question for that. But I think that in general, the use of artificial intelligence in cyber-physical learning will be a very powerful tool that we can use. Oh, for instance, if you have people like having people from China, Singapore, and Mexico together, right? So probably they don't speak the same language. Probably everybody speaks English. But what about if we speak our own language and then using artificial intelligence, we can translate it to the other students in their own language. So we can interact with them, not in our natural language and they in their natural language. That something could be done. And so on. So there are endless ideas that we can have for AI in education, in this particular case, cyber-physical learning education. So I think we have a good future in that sense.
Thank you very much, Genaro. Indeed. The whole field of learning analytics is somehow applying AI algorithms to analyze the behaviors and the interactions that take place within the different learning environments and translate them into learning indicators. So that's actually building a bridge between both worlds, which indeed is cyber-physical learning. So yeah, I think that AI as well will help us a lot in such efforts. So we'll move on to a final question, in which I will open the microphone so that you can freely participate, which is related to the key challenges and ethical considerations that should be addressed in these cyber-physical learning environments. What can you tell us about this?
If I don't mind, I'll jump in because you mentioned assessments, Genaro, and having just spent the weekend grading some assignments, it's fresh in my mind. And so let me explain, give you some context right now. And the assessment that I'm assessing right now is for a digital literacy course, and it's to teach students multimodal communication, right, in today's world, the implications of multimodality and so on. And one of the assessments is every week, a student must lead an online asynchronous discussion forum, right? They're split off into different groups, and each student picks a topic related to the course content, and they lead a discussion forum, kind of like a seminar at an MA level, although this is a UG course. And so I'm grading the student leaders' ability to lead the discussion in a multimodal form asynchronously. And as I'm reading through the threads, I'm thinking, boy, I wish I had an AI tool that can help me with this. Because I know it's possible. I know I could probably cut and paste this entire discussion forum thread, put it into ChatGPT, put in a rubric that I've designed for the course and say, now give me feedback. How well does this person lead the discussion? And it will probably help me with that. It could even give a assigned grade. But of course, there's a lot of ethical issues with that, right? With the way that the thread is working in Canvas, we're using Canvas. I'd have to delete all the names and make sure I delete them all out, right? But then there's subtle inferences to participants, right? And then there's content that might be sensitive. So I couldn't do that. So I'm thinking when I'm looking forward to the day where we have a user interface in a learning management system that allows us to do this in a secure fashion. And we're not there yet, right? Unfortunately, we know the technology could possibly do it, but we don't have a platform that allows us to do this. And one of the things that I worry about with EdTech solutions is that there might be some that come up, but they might not be appropriate for our institution, or it might not work with our learning management system. So this is one of the constraints. Right now, the technologies and the needs of the different institutions and educational sectors aren't always talking to each other, right? And if you want to work around it, then you have the issue of ethics and security. And that brings me to the other point, and I'll finish very quickly here, is when we're talking about cyber-physical learning and how it needs different educational approaches, pedagogy, and so on, when we're training faculty member in these areas, right now, I'm not just talking about AI anymore, I'm talking about the holistically cyber-physical learning, is sometimes there's this misunderstanding that there's a one-size-fits-all. And it's very difficult, or not difficult, but it's very important to show that we need to be flexible in our pedagogy and showing that, well, this is a scenario, this is a case study and how it works, but don't just use this model. It might change when you go into another situation, another course, another discipline, right? But unfortunately, sometimes when I talk to faculty members and they say, well, that's not going to work for me because this is how you're supposed to do it, they refer to what they know or what they've been taught, and they're not flexible, creative in changing the pedagogical approach for cyber-physical learning that might be more appropriate to them. So that's just a side point that I wanted to raise, but I'll pass it on to the others now.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay. Ken, can I talk? Okay, perfect. Luis, thank you, Sean. I think that we, as a challenge, I was reading out some of the comments from the audience, and I agree with one comment that says that there is a technological challenge, and that's true. I mean, we assume, I don't know if it is right for everybody, but we assume that everything will be okay in terms of technology, and it is not. There were students in the pandemics who didn't have a computer. They share a computer in the house, or even internet. They didn't have good internet to connect. We as professors, I mean, we took, at least in Tecnológico Monterrey, we took care of having a good connection, a good computer to transmit, but we don't know what happened with each student. So that is a challenge. I mean, if we are going to have our physical learning, we should have good equipment, good technology, and good internet for everybody. So that could be something related to, this is a challenge, but also it's a ethical consideration, because we try to have this pedagogy to have access, to have equity. But if there is not enough technology from students, then we are failing. You know what I mean? So that's a challenge, but also an ethical issue there that we have to take into account, that we want to be inclusive, but probably in terms of having the resources for the technology, we are not.
Yeah, I think, like what Genaro was saying, I think, accessibility of all these cyber physical learning tools is very important, which is also connected to equitable access. So that's why I think when we come out with all these gadgets, tools, we also have to be mindful that these are affordable, accessible to our students, especially when we talk about, let's say, AR, VR kind of learning. Right now, the VR goggles, it can be quite costly. So while we develop technology, we also have to be mindful. So maybe when we are doing something, we have to come up with one way of assessing it is VR goggles. Maybe another way is through some normal computer devices. which I hope most students will have. So at least we have various options, for students to access certain learning tools. And with these options, hopefully, most of these options are accessible. So accessibility, like what Genaro is saying, is very important. The other aspect is also because I think right now with this cyber physical learning, we actually have very different learning settings. We have a learning setting that is not just physical, but there's also this cyber component. So we also have to be mindful of the well-being of learners in these different settings. How physical students respond and treat cyber students and vice versa. I mean, a simple analogy is in metaverse. You know, you have heard of some of the not so positive stories there. So again, I think we also need to have some ethical considerations, principles that will guide the learners of how to interact with one another in the cyberspace, the cyberspace or cyber physical space. So I think we also need to look into some of these ethical concepts such that we can protect and safeguard the well-being of our learners and also for the instructors as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for sharing such valuable insights. I think we have a couple of minutes if to check if someone from the audience has a specific question. You are welcome to share it through the chat here in Zoom, or you can also use the WOBA app chat where all questions will be recorded and maybe they could be answered even if we don't have enough time right now. But before we head to the questions, I think Genaro wanted to make a small announcement. So I'll give him the microphone.
Yeah. Thank you, Luis. I'm going to take this forum to have an announcement that let me try to share this. In Tecnológico Monterrey, we have the IFE conference. The IFE conference is on January 23 to 25, and everybody is invited. I know Ken is coming. Chen, I don't know whether you are coming. You are perfect. So this is a conference, 3 days conference, in which we have thousands of people, 3,000 in face-to-face there, and 2,000 more connected remotely. And the conference is for education in the era of artificial intelligence. But also, what we have here is different special events during the conference all together and in parallel. So we have two that I would like to just tell you. One is the Artificial Intelligence in Education Summit. This is a summit that we are organizing with Southern New Hampshire University, in which we are going to have plenary speakers and then summit speakers. We are going to have workshops. We are going to have parallel sessions, panels. So we invite you to this special event, and then the Cyber Physical Learning Alliance Summit that will occur in the same conference. So there we are going to have also speakers, but also panels, and you are invited to those two summits during the IFE conference. So that's what I wanted to say. And the webpage is down there, www.ciie.mx. It used to be International Conference of Innovative whatever. So it is now the IFE conference.
Thank you very much, Genaro. Indeed, actually, our speakers today are part of the Cyber Physical Learning Alliance, which is this summit. Their first summit is going to take place in January within the IFE conference. So yeah, all of you are welcome to join us in January to learn more about this subject, to participate in innovation talks, discussion panels, book presentations, networking events, keynotes, etc. So let me see if we have a question from the audience. I think earlier before we had someone asked if Kenneth has links on the projects that are being conducted at SUTD. I don't know if you could share them here through the chat.
Yeah. We have a website with that link. let me just find it. So it lists down, some of our thoughts, our philosophy, why we are doing it, and what are some of the things we are doing. We call this, innovation program, Campus X. So X means is exploratory, so people can explore new things. Yeah, X also means something exciting, whether it's something that unknown in a way, and we're trying to do it. Yeah. Let me just cut and paste the link also. Okay, good. And also it's something unknown. So this is a new area, brought on by certain disruption transformations. So feel free to take a look. And if you have any questions, we have a contact email address there, so you can drop us an email as well. Then we can then see how to reach out back to you.
Thanks, Kenneth. Let me check just in the Hove app if we have any more questions. I believe not, but I'll just double check. Okay, so we don't have any more questions left. I don't know if you'd like to add something else. Otherwise, I think we could close the session. Thank you very much, all of you, for being here. It's been very enriching, all of this information. And we're looking forward to all of these projects happening around the world, like projects within the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, the Singapore University of Technology and Design, and Tecnológico de Monterrey, of course.
Yeah. Thank you. See you.
So thanks, everyone. Have a good day or good evening. And if that's okay, I'm gonna end up the session.